where it tiles everybody. So I don't know if you have that or not, Ronnie.
No, when they
your laptop that I borrowed to do the meetings, to do this, it worked every time when we tried to set it up on it, and things didn't work. The audio wouldn't work for some reason, so we had to scramble.
I'm doing okay because every day I go, I just like sit outside for a minute.
Yeah. I don't know how good a reception you'll have.
It's too hot where you were sitting anyway.
can't get under that shade tree. See, I got a chair in my car.
I put a chair under that dogwood before.
Okay, has Cody got us unmuted?
Hang on 1 second, I'll find out. Yes, you are unmuted.
Okay, so it's 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and bring this meeting to order. June 30th special call meeting, the Glasgow Electric Plant Board is now in order. Like to say right off the bat, Glenn, Marlon, thank y'all for participating today. I know y'all had your reasons, but I just appreciate us being able to get this this business taken care of. These are things we had to have done here before the beginning of the new fiscal year, and they're critical to the operation of the utility. So appreciate you being there. Ronnie, I want to tell you thank you very much for sending that letter out on behalf of the EPB. I know it's hate to take drastic measures, but sometimes we've got to do some things that just to get this business done. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for making that happen, and appreciate it.
Well,
First,
Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, can I add something to that?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so yes, Marlon and Glenn, thank y'all for showing up. And I hope that going forward that we can all show up on our designated meeting nights to take care of business that needs to be taken care of. You know, this was the end of the fiscal year. Everybody was aware of that. So everybody knew the importance of what needed to be done. You know, for anybody that wants to play political games or make statements or whatever, business comes first. So I appreciate y'all being here, and I hope that from now on we can have meetings at our regularly scheduled time.
Okay. Anybody else before we get started? All right, so first item on the agenda is considering the minutes of the April 28th meeting. Since we didn't have any official meetings in the month of May or June, we are now going back to the April 28th official meeting. So if I can get a motion to approve the minutes of the April 28th meeting, I'll consider a motion for that, please.
Motion.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Okay, got a second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, approving the minutes from the April 28th meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. And motion passes. Second item on the agenda is ratification of the programming committee actions. Billy, would you like to review those with us, please?
I would like to, Mr. Chairman. As you can see on the screen, we had 3 different vendors whose contract expired a few months ago. And first one is Access TV and HDNet. Those are HD channels. They offered us a deal with a net reduction in fees, which is pretty surprising, from 74.8 cents to 62.2 cents per subscriber per month. The new contract would go through March of 2024, and the programming committee recommended that we accept that. Second, Stingray Digital Music, which is all the music channels. We're paying 18 cents per sub per month, and the new agreement only has a consumer price index increase. The programming committee recommended that we accept that contractual proposal. It goes through 6/30/2023, and then Turner Networks has a whole sack full of different channels that I'm showing you now. The left-hand column has the existing 2020, and then they proposed a 3-year deal with small rate increases for all of those services: CNN, Headline, PBS, TNT, Cartoon, True TV, Turner Classic Movies, and Boomerang. Those are all owned by Turner. And you can see the annual increases at the bottom: 42 cents in 2021, 46 cents in 22, and 48 cents in 23. Again, the programming committee recommended that you all accept that proposal and that we continue to carry those services.
We're looking at about $1.20 increase across the board then, right?
Yeah, 42 cents per year. which is a lot better than what we've been seeing from these vendors in the past,
Yeah.
or at least the past 7 or 8 years.
Okay. So program committee's already recommended we go ahead and accept the terms. So, it's always a good idea to listen to your committee. And if we all are in agreement, I'll entertain a motion to accept the terms presented to us. If I can get a motion for that, please.
Motion.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All's in favor of accepting the terms and the recommendations to the programming committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the 2020 budget rectification. I believe this is related to KRS. I believe, Billy, it's KRS 65, requires us to present a rectified budget at the end of the year. This law was passed a few years ago. I believe that is going to be due by tomorrow. So if we could take a look at that. And,
Okay, I got it in front of you. First of all, is, as you said, Mr. Chairman, the rectification. This time last year, we passed a 2020 proposed budget, and one thing that's certain in the utility business, you're going to miss it because you have no idea what your revenue is going to be. So the left-hand column represents what the board approved last year. The center column is our actual experiences that we project for the end of June 30. The law requires that nonprofits like us operate on a balanced budget. In other words, once we propose a budget, at the end of the year, we've got to clean it up to make it accurate. So the first motion I need for Mel to be able to submit this immediately after this meeting is on this rectification. And this is just these are the actual numbers. You can see that the operating income was vastly different. Of course, we had the pandemic that seriously reduced our operating income, and different expenses down through here are really just corrected from reality. And if you have any questions about it, I'm here, and luckily Melanie's in the room too. If you have any questions about it.
all right. So really the biggest differences I see are going to be in depreciation. Melanie, where did we get those changes in depreciation numbers? Are we normally those are fixed?
Well, as we add more plant to the, or during the year, then that depreciation expense.
Okay, and that's good. I normally see that going the other way if we're adding assets. It's actually going to be a decrease, looks like. So are we going to reclassify some assets, make them more long-term? Is that kind of the goal here?
It is. We also actually didn't add as many assets this year as we had projected. Of course, we had work, so that's
got you. Notice our interest expense is dropping a couple of $100,000, or what we had in our between our actual budget and rectified budget. Is that due to the refinancing?
yes.
Okay. Well, it all looks good to me. It looks reasonable. I'll entertain a motion to accept the rectified budget as presented, so we can get it turned in today. Accept a motion on that. If anybody's willing to give one, please.
Motion.
A motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Got a second. All those in favor of submitting the rectified budget as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, motion passes. Billy, go ahead and get that out today if you don't mind.
Okay, and this one is next. This is the projected fiscal year 2021 budget. As you can see, we have pretty drastically altered our projected operating income based on our experience from the pandemic. And the rest of this stuff just falls out using Melanie's normal projections on what our simplified revenue and expenses are going to be. So it comes out with a projected $2.6 million change in net assets. We need to file this today as well.
So the operating income, it looks like it's about what, $4.5 million less than what it was projected in the prior year budget. Is that right?
There.
29 million or so. The revenue was what it was in the prior year projected budget, and this year it's at 24.
Right.
Are we considering the impact of COVID-19? We considering the impact of lost revenue due to lost industry, et cetera? Is that what we're anticipating?
Both, those flows from those graphics that have been provided to you all each month, where we combine what we think the impact of forbearance, increased write-offs, and reduced kilowatt hour sales and reduced revenue because LSC is closed.
Okay. So we're not seeing as broad of an impact because of the the way that our rate structure is, or our tariff is structured on the variable rate. So I guess we're not seeing the kilowatt hour production is not going to have such a profound impact as if we were, selling kilowatt hours and marketing them up, I guess, right? So we're able to get by with less revenue, still operate efficiently and effectively.
Because we're mainly non-volumetric in our rate design, the impact is severely diminished.
Okay. And again, depreciation expense is down substantially over prior year, and that's due to because we don't anticipate having as much capital outlay for fixed assets. Is that correct, Melanie?
Yes, that's correct.
Everybody feel comfortable, had a chance to review. Anybody have any questions? Looks like interest expense is going to be, pretty close. It's a good thing we did the refinance. That's going to save us about $100,000 a year, it looks like. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the budget as presented, so we can get that turned in today. If anybody would like to make a motion, please.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Glenn, second. All those in favor of presenting accepting the budget as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. So, Billy, let's go ahead and get that budget turned in today. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. That takes a load off. This next screen is really just informational, just abbreviated projected cash flow. It's really just a combination of the figures you've already seen there, but just wanted you to see that we are what we're going to turn into the Office of Local Government is the same thing that we've been telling you all, that our fiscal house is in order and we're in pretty good shape considering the impacts that we've suffered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next one is a pretty big deal also. It's the write-offs that we do twice a year. We need to do, according to the audit, what we agreed to do with the auditor. We're doing it in December and June. So today is another important day for us to get this done. You're going to see, if you look at the detailed write-offs, and if you want me to, I've got a link to that where we can spool through them all, but it's about $53,000 worth of write-offs for the 6 months from June of 2019 till December of 2019. So this is not current, so it doesn't reflect any of the impacts of the pandemic. We've got a large commercial customer that filed bankruptcy. We're going to lose some money on that. We're going to lose some money on a bulk cable contract for a large housing complex. We've got, if you flip through there, you're going to see some amazing numbers, like a residential customer who we're writing off an $830 bill for. That's a customer that and this is common, where somebody wants to set up new service, but they still owe us for the last time we had service with them. So we worked with them to include the old bill on the new bill so they can make payments on it, but they defaulted. So we still have the loss on the old bill as well as the new kilowatt hours that they used before they left. And then we have these deals too, where you'll see $1,080 for another residential customer. That's someone who moved in, never paid a bill. So they got us for 2 monthly bills and a final bill before we terminated that service, and that's common. One of the reasons why we need so much security, or we need some security. And I've got a link to that stuff if you want to scroll through it. But also, I would like to, this is tangentially related to the write-offs. This forbearance that we are doing, that we began in March because of the pandemic, I've reported several times, every month I report on this, and presently there's about 270 residential customers who are in arrears because we are not terminating service due to non-payment. And we're kind of caught between the dynamic of the Commonwealth of Kentucky saying people are in trouble and we don't want utilities disconnecting service. So that's on one side of us. On the other side of us is the actual accounting, where we can see how large some of these bills are getting. And we know that the state thinks they're doing a great favor to people, but we also know that that favor is going to result in people having very large unpaid balances that are, the old chickens come home to roost deal. That's gonna come up. The forbearance is going to end one day, and those people are going to owe that money. Now, as I said, there's about 270 residential accounts that are in that situation. Now, all of those customers are in that situation because they lost their job. Some of them, if they are drawing some kind of a benefit that has not been altered by the pandemic, it's a bit more difficult to draw a line between the pandemic and why they are in arrears. So one of the things that we've come up with that I wanted to bounce off of you all for your input on this is that some of those customers have non-essential services like the high definition tier and cable TV, premium channels, what we used to call the digital tier. And we're wondering how you all would feel about us helping reinforce the truth in this matter, that people, due to the benevolence of the state, are putting themselves kind of behind the 8 ball on such a huge unpaid balance. One way we could mitigate that, we think, without violating the orders from the Commonwealth, would be to go ahead and provide notice, whatever you all think is appropriate. We're thinking if you all agree to this, we'll notify people that pick a number by July the 10th or whatever, we're going to start non-essential people that are in arrears. For 2 reasons. One, to keep the arrears from getting larger, and 2, to underscore the fact that people need to be trying to make some payments to reduce the growth of their unpaid balance. So I wanted to run that by you all.
Hey, Tag.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure, it's something I guess you guys can think about, but with a special called meeting, you got to be limited to your agenda. And, I don't think you could entertain any motions about, you're just talking about the write-offs. I know Billy Ray said those were sort of connected, but it's, you are limited to your agenda on this special meeting. So I don't know if he's asking.
I think write-offs and non-payment are more than sort of connected, Ronnie. They're one of the
No, you're not talking about write-offs. You're talking about terminating services on the forbearance. If you all agree with Billy Ray, they're connected, then you could take action on them. I just wanted to be sure. I think that's been talked about at other meetings. So.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Billy, what kind of time frame? How critical is it that we address the write-off side right now?
Well, I mean, it's not critical. It's probably too strong of a word, but as I said, we're recognizing that people are enjoying that forbearance perhaps more than they should because it will end. And if part of the problem is generated by products they're buying from us that are not essential, then we're talking about a way to mitigate the pain they're going to be in. So I can't tell you about the criticality of that and the time. Obviously, every day that goes by, that gets larger, but it's not growing at some exponential rate.
Well, and I'll just considering what Ronnie was talking about, and I understand that this is probably germane, but considering right now we've got there's a lack of a better word, there are some appearance of hostility when it comes to some of the items that we're taking through certain members of the media. I think we want to make sure that we don't run afoul of our rules for special call meetings. And if it wasn't something that was critical, and I agree with you, it's probably something we should go ahead and address now to keep those things from getting so far out of hand that we the impact is not going to be so great on us as it's going to be on the actual customer. So I agree these are things we probably should go ahead and look at, but I think right now we probably need to go ahead and stick with just the write-offs that we're dealing with today.
Okay.
Something we can talk about at the next regular called meeting. So if you don't care to go ahead and put that on the agenda for the next regular meeting.
Shall.
We'll cover.
Hey, Bill, Tag, you guys would remember better than I would, I guess, but I was thinking y'all addressed those issues and made decisions about some of the non-essential services, like cable and internet and things. Maybe a vote was never taken on it.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually ever taken any action. We have discussed it. I know we've discussed what we're going to do because we sort of saw this coming. But I don't know that we've ever taken any action. But I think this is something we need to focus on at our next meeting for sure.
We did discuss it at one point in time. However, at that time, kids were still in school. So for them to be able to do all of their stuff, their schoolwork for the end of the school year, we were not disconnecting anything at that time. That was when that was where that was addressed at. So, but I do have a question. So if these write-offs are June through November of last year, did we not take action at an earlier meeting last year where we said that if somebody owed us an old bill and they wanted service again, that they were only going to have the option of the pay-as-you-go, so that half of their monies could be put toward the old bill and then part of it toward the new one? Did we not do that last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is, like a residential customer who 2 monthly bills moved in and never paid a bill, was that prior to that vote, or how did that happen?
Sure, I think that was in December, and most of the ones that are in front of you we had already accrued. We just hadn't addressed them yet. In December, we looked back at the ones from January through the end of June.
Yeah, I was thinking that was June that we addressed that when we did the first set of write-offs that I was there for. I was thinking that was when we addressed that.
It could have been, but of course this customer may have set service 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Bills, I'm not sure.
Okay,
Well,
I just wanted some clarification there.
It's got a little squishy too with our with deferring these bills due to coronavirus too. So I think we're going to have to get a little bit clearer understanding of exactly how that dovetails in with what our policy is for forbearance, and then how it's going to, dovetail in with what we've got. But I think this is something we certainly need to look at for the July meeting before school starts back, potentially in August, and so we can have some idea of what those customers may look, what they're facing, what their access to technology is going to be for school, et cetera. So we need to take a serious look at coming July meeting. So if you put it on the July agenda, really appreciate it.
So we still need a motion if you are of a mind on the write-offs.
Yeah, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the write-offs as presented. Let's go ahead and take care of those now. It's just going to clean up our balance sheet.
Motion.
So we got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Glenn, second. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor of writing off accounts as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I've lost my agenda. Bear with me just a second, guys. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of the solar pilot project. Something I want to talk about. I know this has become sort of a political football within our board. I don't really understand why. Because maybe it relates to the TVA project. Nobody's wanting to commit anything more. I'm sorry, the TVA contract. And nobody's wanting to commit anything more to the TVA contract in fear that it may bolster the other side's position. Listen, this is something that's going to have to be done, whether we're with TVA or with someone else. We need to be looking at how these things work. It's just part of our own internal R&D that we need to go ahead and take care of and start looking at how some of these things work, how to best apply best practices to the project, how to best apply operation and maintenance, what those budget items are going to look like moving forward, what the time budget's going to look like, et cetera. This is all things we need to do because we're moving towards the renewable energy side of things anyway. The traditional generation methods are starting to be replaced with more renewable generation methods. And I don't think we want to be behind the eight ball. I think this is something we can all agree on that we need to look at as far as renewable energy generation projects locally. I ask you to set aside your belief that this is not something that we're trying to sneak in here or get done to try to bolster anybody's position with TVA, et cetera. This is just so we can look at a solar project so that we can look at generating our own power locally through a distributed generation network. So I wish everybody would really reconsider their position on this. Let's look at what's best for the community as far as solar projects or as far as renewable energy projects go. Let's study this thing so we can understand what we're dealing with. So when the floodgates do open up, we're prepared and we're not really trying to kind of catch up to everybody else, which could potentially cost us a lot of money, not only through additional equipment costs, but through just being behind everyone else and how we're going to fit within this new environment. So I'd really wish everybody would take a second look at this thing or a fourth look at this thing and understand that we're just trying to get a handle on how a lot of these things work from a technology standpoint, a financial standpoint, and from an operations and maintenance standpoint.
Well, and the whole goal is not only, being able to develop a percentage of our own power, but the ultimate goal is to see how we can use that solar to offset the demand and, lower customer bills with it ultimately. But now, as far as the $13,000 goes to get this research, that's pretty much a minimal cost for the amount of data that we would get from that. And in all reality, $13,000 is well below Billy's amount that he can spend without board approval. He was being very polite when he brought this before the board, considering that it was voted back several months ago that so much money was to go per month into a fund for this project in particular. So, once again, I'm like Tag, I'd ask that everybody actually do some research, educate yourself, and see what the end result would be with this. And that is a very minimal cost for the data that we would receive from it.
Tag, I'm not 100% against this project for any one particular reason, but I just don't think this is the right time right now. And I haven't really changed my views on it.
Can you tell me why you don't think this is the right time, Glenn?
Well, I don't think it's the right time for different reasons, I guess. you know, that people are still having some financial issues and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if it would look good if we do spend $13,000 on a project and sort of put it in the front yard. I may feel different about this later, you know, at a later date.
And that's fair enough. You know, I mean, my point, I guess, is that money has already been allocated for that project and is sitting there. So it wouldn't be anything that we hadn't previously set that money aside for, you know.
But we're not going to lose the money, are we, if we don't use it right now?
No, we're certainly not going to lose the money. So, you know, it's just that it's already sitting there, and all the time that we waste on it is time that we're behind with our peers. So.
Yeah, it's just we're just losing data. You know, the more data we can gather, the better. You know, it's just you get you know how it is. You get 2 points on a graph. It gives you some indication. You get 3, you're better. But you start getting 10 and 12 points on a graph, then you really understand what that future looks like. And that's all we're trying to do is start gathering that data as quickly as possible, so that if we have the opportunity to be able to do this, we want to be able to jump on it, because the savings potential for our community is so great. You know, in the fact of reducing demand, and it doesn't matter which utility provider we're with, we're going to be looking at reducing demand, you know, into our community. So, and that increases, you know, helps load factor, et cetera. So we want to make sure that we just start gathering as much data so that we can have a better understanding, engineer the right size of system, so that we can start taking advantage of those savings as quickly as possible. And every month that we put this off, that just delays that savings even that much more, because we don't have the proper data to be able to determine the proper sizing. And this is complicated. I get it. You know, there's a fine line between sizing a system to the appropriate size and then getting the benefit out of it. You can certainly get here and not get as much benefit and cost you a bunch of money that you don't need to spend on the sizing because you've oversized the system. And you certainly don't want to undersize it because you're not getting the benefit from here that you would be getting the other way. So, you know, this data that we're trying to gather is really trying to determine what that proper sizing is going to be, what kind of line loss we're going to be looking at, efficiency on the panels, et cetera. We just want to start gathering that data, and we really need probably, you know, anywhere between, you know, 10 months and 18 months worth of data to be able to really start getting a pretty good idea of what that sizing is going to look like. So that's why we want to move on this now, just to start getting this data pushed in. And Glenn, and I can certainly sympathize with, you know, the fact that it looks like we're just out here wasting money, but it's really not what we're going to do here. And I think we're going to have to message that a little bit, that we're not here just building some type of, you know, vanity project, and with a bunch of solar panels sitting out in the front. This is being done for a research purpose, so we can at some point come back later and really save the citizens of this community several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year potential cost leaving this town. So, you know, that's why I want to try to push this thing. If we can just get it done. I'm probably going to
stay where I'm at. My thoughts on it, but I mean, I'll accept whatever the board wants to do. I don't have a problem with that. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'm sure you can see the importance of what this project would give to the community, though, Glenn.
It'll be a ways down the road, but I'd see where, eventually it could be.
Yeah. Well, which any research is, you know, is going to be a little ways down the road. But I mean, ultimately, the goal is to save a lot of money for the citizens of Glasgow.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm all about.
Amen.
That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, this is not a cost. We got to look at it this way. It's not a cost. It's an investment. The two different things. We'll get a return on investment. We won't get anything out of a cost. So this is certainly an investment, $13,000 investment, you know, in this project. Now, listen, the beauty of it is once we use it for testing, we decide to go ahead and build one, we move this thing right over into operations also. It's not like it's just going to be thrown away. All of this could be used to generate power. Even if we just use it on, say, you know, local building costs, you know, at the EPB itself. So we'll, you know, like I said, this is an asset that we're going to be having, no different than a transformer or a substation or a truck. It's something that we're going to be using. We're going to be able to invest in our fixed assets. It's going to give us a return at a later date.
Right.
But
let me point out once again, the money is sitting there. It's already been allocated for that purpose. It's not like we don't have it, not like we're pulling it from something else. You know, the money is there for that purpose.
Okay, any other discussion?
I know what you're saying.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
I just said I understand that, yeah, about the money situation.
Okay. Any other discussion? Well, I'll, Libby, I'm sure you probably want to make the motion.
Absolutely, I'll make that motion.
All right, so we got a motion. Do we have a second? I'll go ahead and make the second. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of starting a research project so we can research the solar system. I think the cost is $13,000. Everybody in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion, it's a tie vote, so motion fails. So let's move on to the 2021 Kentucky League of Cities Insurance Package Renewal, Billy.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the renewal date on our umbrella insurance, which is everything you can see listed here: workers' comp, general liability, automobile, property, crime, and public officials liability. It renews on July 1. We've been buying our insurance through the Kentucky League of Cities for over a decade, probably closer to 2. And this is the end of a 3-year agreement that we had signed 3 years ago to stay with them for a guarantee of no rate increase. Now, I should quickly add that the guarantee of no rate increase doesn't mean that the bill stays the same, because the rate is applied to the risk. With workers' comp, if someone injured, it changes our modifier. So even if they use the rate the same, they multiply it by something different. As you can see, we're facing a very large increase in our workers' comp premium from $55,000 to $86,000. But we're luckily also getting some decreases on general liability. That has to do, with all our buildings and what have you. Well, actually, that's property. But that's also multiplied. One of the ways that rate is multiplied is by our payroll. So that's gone down, and so this has gone down. Automobiles about the same. Property is up a little bit every year. We perhaps look at the replacement value of all our different property, and that gets tweaked a little bit. And public officials liability is pretty much the same, down $1,000. So we need to pay this today, $195,771. And they have pitched us another 3-year proposal, and I'm going to recommend to you that you do both. Authorize us to pay our insurance for the year that starts tomorrow, and probably also accept another 3-year proposal. My main reasoning for that is, and I don't want to be indelicate here, but this public officials liability has a pretty good chance of having a big claim against it with the present political and litigation environment. And there's a pretty good chance if we don't take this deal, we won't find anybody else to offer it to us. So that's my recommendation.
Is the 3-year renewal going to look like the 2021 budgeted amount premium here, Bill?
It'll look like the rates that are buried in there, Tag, but every one of these things also has some kind of a multiplier so that the bottom line is still going to vary, because our workers' comp modifier changes, and the payroll changes. That changes the general liability and all this stuff. So it's kind of a phrase of art when they say your rate won't change, because I think most people, me included, interprets that as my bill's going to be the same, but that's not particularly the case.
well, this is through the KLC, so we have to trust in the fact that they're probably going to give us as good of a deal as we're going to get from anybody else. I mean, I don't think you found that there are better packages out there, have you, Billy, with anybody else, historically?
Yeah, we've never gotten quotes from anything but KLC and what's called DIC, Distributors Insurance Corporation. EPB has a wholly owned insurance affiliate, and they will normally quote our insurance as well. And the times that we've had the bid, there's practically no difference between them. And we find some of the terms of the KLC policy, especially on boiler and machinery coverage for substations, has been much more attractive and has been a lot easier for us to get payments from than DIC's coverage was. So that's why I recommend we stay with them.
Okay. All right. So any discussion? $12,000 increase, $11,900 increase over previous year. I know that's a sad thing to say, but that's not as bad as the rest of the market has been over the course of the last 12 to 24 months. So I just wish we didn't have that big change in workers' comp, but there's nothing you can do about that. It has to do with your mod rate, not your insurance carrier.
I hasten to point out, I should have mentioned this earlier, but under the discussion of this, as well as the write-offs, all of those numbers that we're throwing around are part of our fixed costs. So when we do rate design discussion and talk about covering our fixed costs, these are the kind of things that go into the fixed costs that are not related to the amount of energy people buy and should not be tied to the amount of energy. And that's why we're trying to move our fixed cost recovery more and more into the customer charge, because these costs don't vary based on the amount of energy people buy.
Okay.
Well, and what really scares me is, like you pointed out, the public official liability. I mean, a 3-year proposal is looking pretty good, so that, everybody that has EPB service doesn't get hit with staggering extra cost added to their fixed rates because of, or their fixed charges because of not taking advantage of this, and then that one line being drastically inflated, due to all the political pandering.
Yeah. Okay. So, if anybody have any further discussion, any questions? So I'll entertain a motion to accept the premium adjustment as presented, pay the bill today, and let's go ahead and lock this thing in for 3 years.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of paying the bill as presented and accepting 3-year contract terms with KLC, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. So next item on the agenda is how we're going to do these things in the future. I think, do we have any guidance from the governor's office at this point? What's being recommended? I know we're seeing a tick in some parts of the country. I think Kentucky's been relatively lucky in the fact we've not been seeing that substantial uptick, but I guess Billy or Ronnie, have y'all kept track of what the governor's saying on how we need to present and form our meetings? What are the state committees doing, et cetera?
I would say, Tag, that of course they've relaxed the guidelines a little bit, but they still have the healthy at work guidelines, which talks about the 6 feet and those sorts of things. And, the problem, I think, for the future meetings, not necessarily for the board, but access to the public to comply with open meetings. The meeting room, the boardroom for the EPB, I don't know that if everybody was there with all the staff necessary to operate it, you're going to be able to recognize the healthy at work guidelines unless you had some other place you're having. I know, like city council, I think they've had their meetings they got a lot bigger room to accommodate the public. Although a lot of public does not come to the meetings, with all that's going on with EPB, there are a lot that do want to come. So I think and then not knowing also with the governor, you got all these states spiking back up, and he could obviously change his opinion between now and the time we have the next meeting. Seems like the safer would be at least to continue. You may always address it on the agenda, but I would think the next meeting probably ought to stay the same. But Billy Ray may have some other thoughts about that.
No, I really don't. I know right now the healthy at work guidelines are no more than 10 people in a room. And if you all are so unhappy with the Zoom format that you want to go back to at least having the board members in the room, perhaps with masks on, or at least trying to be 6 feet apart, but changing the stipulation that the meetings are still not open to the public, that they'll be available via cable TV and the YouTube channel that we're doing. I think you could do that, but if you all are okay to continue like this, we're fine with it as well.
Okay.
Billy,
Well,
I think I would agree with you on that. I would like to meet in the boardroom and just follow the guidelines. I had trouble logging in this morning at my shop, and I think it was on my end, but I'd rather meet in the boardroom is what I would be in favor of.
I'm in favor of that also.
I'm certainly involved. I like looking y'all in the eye face to face, not just on Zoom.
So the one thing we have to consider, we've got to weigh our convenience, of course, and ability to get things done with the convenience and the compliance with public participation. What provisions can we put in place that if the public did want to participate during our meetings, they would be able to do so? Is there anything, Billy, can we set something up in another room? We got the overflow room. I think that's where Marlon is right now. Is there something we can, how do we address that if we go back to it?
We could provide the link to the Zoom meeting, put it out in the open, and let people participate. But you would have to become acclimated to, or we'd have to provide another personnel to. If you had 15 other people that wanted to be on this Zoom meeting and they wanted to say something, the chairman would need to watch them raise their hand or whatever and decide if you're going to recognize them, and then he'd have to nod at someone administrator here to open the mic up for them. I mean,
I don't think that's something that's actually feasible to be able to do. I think it's on a Zoom meeting without having, to keep a track of who's doing what. And my real question is, if we decide to go back to in-person, in-boardroom meetings that we have right now, is there anything we can do with ensuring that we adhere with the public participation rules?
Well, if you guys were to make a motion that you would authorize us to move in that direction, and I can work with Ronnie and Lance, our risk guy, try to find out how far we can go. I'm not conversant enough with the ever-changing directives by the state to tell you exactly what we could do, but perhaps we could say, we've got 5 board members, you got a superintendent, you got 1 or 2 EPB staff people, and if that leaves 3 people that would be allowable in this room, we can somehow post someone at the door and not let more than 3 people at a time in that wanted to participate. I mean, something like that is likely possible, but we would also need to be very strict about people wearing masks and follow. Remember that what we're trying to accomplish here is to keep as many people healthy as possible. So if you all were to give us a directive like that, by the time of the end of July, at the next regular meeting, we could have a recommendation on how we could do it, to go as far in the direction that you all want to go as the regulations will allow.
Well, I think it's everybody's desire to probably get back to in-person meetings, but at the same time, things are so fluid right now with, not only our own observation of what's going on with the coronavirus, but also through, the governor's orders, et cetera. So, I know this is probably a hard ask, but if we want to just maybe leave it and make a decision, I don't know if you want to leave that up to me, leave that up to Billy, but leave it up to somebody to maybe kind of follow this thing. And as we move closer to that July meeting, we can make a determination on whether we want to be meeting in person or whether we want to continue on with Zoom, just kind of based on, the conditions that we have closer to the time of the meeting. I don't know how, it's very difficult right now to make that determination, and I suppose it's best to stay with the status quo if we don't have all the information necessary. But I think it's everybody's desire to get back. I just don't want my impatience to, and everybody else's impatience to put anybody at risk. So,
and it'll be left like it is, where these rooms will be available at the EPB if we want to attend it like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of choosing between the way we're doing it right now, just like we're doing it, or trying to get back in person, with, I don't know what kind of conditions we'll have to have. I just don't know that we can see into that crystal ball right now to make that determination, as to what's going to be best a month from now. Who knows? Because look at a month ago, compared to now. Who knows?
Of course, Tag, the last board action was to, operate at Zoom until further action was approved by the board. So
right.
I guess you could approve somebody. I hate to get in a situation where you're going to let one person decide when you got 3 or 4 that says, well, I can't come because I think I'm not safe.
Right.
A better option may be to leave the next meeting at Zoom and then have other options at that time, because you maybe something to shake out with the government, and we'll have a little better direction. But
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. One more Zoom, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
I'm just itching to get back around the table.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think there's anything that prevents that if you guys want to take that action today. It's just I'm more concerned about complying with the notices and open meetings.
I just think it'd be irresponsible of us at this point, without any more guidance than what we have from the state, to make a decision of changing our format when we really don't know what format we're allowed. And I think we have some idea, but we just listen. This thing can change in a week's time. I mean, who knows? So it's probably better to go ahead and stick with the status quo at this point and just continue with our Zoom meetings, if everybody's okay with that. And
try it out one more month, and then we'll see if we can get back.
Okay, so we'll just take no action then, remain with the status quo until we decide what we're going to do in July.
Okay, we understand. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's all I've got for you.
Okay. All right, so Marlon's moved, we adjourn. I am not going to argue because I'm going to go to the beach. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
See you guys. Have a good time. Have a safe trip.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. See ya.
Hey, Marlon and Glenn, just so y'all know, y'all put an order in for us to have those computers ready. They have been ready every time. So if you need it, just